We have a great opportunity today to hear from the folks at Boeing itself. One speaking with us today is retired Brigadier General Robert Novotny. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And once again, I'm just reading off your bio, and also please feel free to correct me on some of this. But the very short version is, one, don't use big words. He apparently is an F-15 pilot in his background. So just like most of the fighter pilots, you have to teach us like the knuckle draggers that we are. But last job, commander of the 57th Wing at Nellis, which if you're not familiar with what goes on at Nellis, I'm not sure it'd be easier to say what doesn't go on at Nellis. Anything and everything to do with our Air Force. What a huge expanse. What a great scope of operations he was responsible for. I have to say it without, saying my Tourette's coming out. Commissioned in 1992, which means he's younger than I am. But a graduate of the Air Force Academy, a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Weapons School, a distinguished, their long list of assignments around the U.S. Air Force. And now currently, and if I remember right by LinkedIn, this is a relatively new executive director of fighter business development, no longer strictly the F-15, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you speak Navy. We're going to be able to talk Hornet with you and Growler today?
We can speak a little Hornet and Growler, a little bit.
Okay. Also show you as the president of Sky Racer Consulting and on the board of CID. So just keep them very busy with things as always, but coming on board with us today to talk from Boeing's perspective about the F-15EX. And the interest around here, of course, is it's been bantered about potentially Selfridge being a home for the F-15EX. Now, whether that's still a viability or not, that's for the politicians and all to decide. But it was an opportunity, I think, for the folks in this area to get a little deeper understanding about the F-15EX, what it brings to the table. The F-15, of course, has been around for quite a while, and I'm sure you'll give us just a little bit of that history. But the fact that it has evolved like any airplane in terms of capabilities, in terms of what it's going to be able to do for us in the future, it is certainly not the first F-15 that rolled off the production line. It's doing amazing things, not just for our Air Force, but Air Forces around the world. Distinguished combat record, if I remember right, 0 air-to-air losses to date for the F-15. And it's going to be great to hear some information about this wonderful capability.
Cool. Thanks, Odie.
Yeah, you can go ahead. I'll get the slides up here in just a second.
Did you? Okay, good. Then I can stop trying to force the Boeing network to accept our to submit to our will, which is good. Then I can close out the rest of this chunk over here that I was trying to get done.
So we're going to have an F-15 driver tell an F-16/A-10 driver how to push slides, what could possibly go wrong. Blender, right. Over to you, my friend. Please welcome to the Michigan Air Force Association. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Odie, and thanks to everybody who's been a great supporter of our United States Air Force, both our active duty component and of course our Air National Guard and our reserve warfighters. I'm a lifelong Air Force Association member myself. I'm based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, making my way to St. Louis, and I've got my teammate Courtney Adams here, who's been at Boeing a lot longer than I have. She's an engineer by trade, wicked smart. And so if you ask any kind of classified questions, she's going to try to answer them, although we probably won't get into that space. I'm not going to try to answer anything. So real quick, I think just like Odie said, the F-15 has been really a guardian of our United States homeland. It has been used by multiple countries around the world since about the early 1970s. We just celebrated, as a matter of fact, the 50th anniversary of the F-15 a few years ago. It has evolved through several variants, the A, B, C, D, and E model. The Air National Guard in particular uses the C and D model, for the most part doing homeland defense around really the coastlines right now, the west and the east coast, and down through the Gulf of Mexico through some of our F-15C Air National Guard platforms. It's no longer in the active duty, save one location out in the far western Pacific of Okinawa, where we have some remaining F-15C fighters that are doing Indo-Pacific activities, as you would imagine, where a predominantly air superiority platform is of great consequence. The F-15E variant is not in use by the Air National Guard right now. There are some reserve airmen that work and fly the F-15E, which was really the legacy. The platform had been so successful as the A and B and C and D model that what they did is converted it to kind of a medium weight, multi-role, predominantly focused on air to ground, but with a really great air to air capability as well, to augment all of the rest of our strike platforms like the F-16 and then the A-10 as well. A pretty much a faster platform than those two, could carry probably a little bit more ordnance as well. Had a fantastic radar, but sacrificed some other capabilities like the nimbleness of the F-16, or the what I would consider the really ability to saturate a target with on-station time with close proximity like an A-10 can. So it was really kind of a nice blend of a lot of different capabilities that came out in the F-15E. Our international partners saw great opportunity to take the F-15E line before it closed and build kind of their own international variant. Our international partners also saw an opportunity to invest in the platform and build it out with some new capabilities. So the Saudi Arabians poured a ton of money into the non-reoccurring engineering capability to bring it into the fly-by-wire mode, which had long been a more of a cable and pulley system. So the F-15 became a total fly-by-wire platform. That opened up some additional carriage capabilities, such as going from about 8 AMRAAMs to 12, which is far and away better than anything in the world right now. And then the Qataris took it one step forward when they built the F-15QA and invested heavily in the cockpit, making it really kind of almost a 5th generation cockpit. I'll show you pictures of that. And at about that point in 2018, I was an active duty 1-star general at Air Combat Command. And we saw that we had a really significant problem that I know Michigan has been dealing with, which is we saw kind of the end of multiple of our Air National Guard platforms that were moving further to the left, which was a problem for us. We were just flying them so hard in the Middle East and in our homeland defense missions, and we needed to get something in spite of, in a capacity mindset. We only had the one fighter jet line through Lockheed Martin with the F-35, and they were just unable to produce as many as we needed as a nation because they'd also gone down a very heavily international sales front. So we said, let's go and get Boeing to interrupt the Qatar line and see if we could rapidly backfill some of our not only Air National Guard platforms and reserve platforms, but maybe also our active duty component with this Ready Now platform that brought great capability, leveraged on a lot of international investment. And at the same time, we thought it would be good for America to provide competition. So now Lockheed's not the only manufacturer of fighter jets, but now you've got both Lockheed and Boeing. And competition would, arguably bring prices and would bring obviously technology into our warfighters. So Odie, that's kind of the background. Let's go to the next slide. And out of that decision in about 2018, the Air Force decided to rapidly contract without going through competition, the F-15EX. The reason it's called the EX or the Eagle II is funny enough, had the Air Force named it something different or not basically said a next variant, it would invoke some competition requirements, which they thought would have slowed the whole process down and probably driven the price right up. So this is a picture, a side view of the F-15EX. It looks like an F-15E. What's unique about this platform is it is without a doubt the ultimate carriage platform. 2 massive General Electric motors, all digital fly-by-wires, allow it to have really unparalleled weapons capacity. When the United States Air Force is looking at hypersonic attack missiles, this is the platform they're thinking about. When they're thinking about counter satellite, this is the platform they're thinking about. When they're thinking about loyal wingman activities or manned and unmanned teaming, we think this is going to be a fantastic threshold platform because of the weapons capacity that it has on it right from the get-go. So 12 air-to-air weapon stations, about 29,000 pounds of air to ground ordnance capacity. Really does things that no other fighter can do, simply because it's a big plane. So I'm sure Odie can tell you, when you pull up in an F-16 next to an F-15, you realize the size of the platform, which has, drawbacks, but that's obviously gives us the weapons capacity. It's a 2.5 Mach class airplane. So the fastest one on the market right now that's for sale. When you put conformal fuel tanks on this airplane and the new GE motors that we have, which are actually incredibly fuel efficient given the thrust they put out, then you get the range that is pretty much unparalleled and the speed that is really top of the game. And then for advanced sensor suite, what I'll tell you is Boeing and Raytheon together have really been kind of the pioneers in the active electronically scanned array radar market. I flew AESAs, is what we call them, in the F-15C back in the late 1990s. And we've only iterated that capability even more so. And the F-15, we like to say, was built around the radar, just like the A-10 was built around the gun. So size matters in this department. It's a physics thing. And so the fact that we have the largest array on the market with a lot of power going through it gives us the ability to see significantly at range. I can't talk about it here, but it's fantastic. Intergroup formation breakout, the ability to handle electronic attack against us, the ability to do multi-target capability is really cool. And then we packaged all that data along with a fantastic new EW suite that we call EPAWS, which stands for Eagle Passive Active Warning Survivability Set. That all comes together into the cockpit through a really amazing cockpit suite that I'm excited to show you here in a minute. So it is the ability to go a long way, incredibly fast, stay there for a long time, see just about everything, defend itself and survive, and then shoot at or on the ground just about any target that prevents a threat that you need to get the mission done. Next slide. I'll also say that the one thing that the platform brings into the 21st century, Odie, as you're clicking to the next slide, is no shortage of growth. We've all seen, so the F-35, which is interesting, rolled out in about 2006, and that was before the iPhone. So you can imagine that all of us in this room are sitting around with iPhone 13s or iPhone 14s. So just think through how many iterations of technology there have been since that platform came out. And so what has the enemy been able to do as well? And we think this platform has got lots of growth potential. It's got, first of all, real estate. So there's plenty of room inside the jet, outside the jet for new components, new arrays, new sensors, new antennas. It's got no shortage of power because it's a twin engine fighter. So that gives us a lot of ability to grow for power requirements and cooling requirements, which is really cool. Real quick, the F-15 family really is a global effort. So you're not in this all by yourself. That's important when we think about long-term modernization. You have people that share some of the cost burden with you. We have a great partner in Saudi Arabia that's currently looking at modernizing their entire fleet. It is a massive fleet that they have, over 200 F-15s. They have some of the newest ones, like I mentioned, that helped us do some of the technological advancements on some sensors and flight controls and weapons carriage. The Koreans just announced on Monday that they're going to modernize their entire F-15 fleet with F-15EX like capabilities. So we're going to do a modification program to them. So they won't get digital flight controls, but they're going to get the cockpit, they're going to get the radar, they're going to get the EW system. They love their F-15s. They've treated them very well. So they have a lot of life left in the bones. And we're going to basically change out the eyes and ears and some of their other capabilities. Singapore, we're having deep discussions about a modernization effort with them. The Qataris, we just flew one of their newest airplanes here in St. Louis the other day. That's kind of a picture of this is a model of the F-15QA, which is the foundation. I call this the the older brother of the F-15EX. The F-15SA in Saudi Arabia is the father. The Qataris have bought 48. They have 48 right now in Doha, and we're building an additional. Did I get that number right? 36, excuse me. They have 36 right now. We're building the last 12 for them right now for a total of 48. We'll deliver those over the next coming months. Japan is in the process of modernizing their F-15 fleet right now. They're under contract. Again, they're getting eyes and ears for their planes. You might have seen in the open source reporting, the Israelis are working towards a contract for 25 new F-15EXs for their fleet. And then finally, the United States of America, which has obviously just made the news in the direction we don't want it to go, which is they are right now, we're negotiating lot 5 of their most recent purchase of F-15EXs, which is an additional 24. And what you might have seen in the press is their lot 6, which was going to be 24 jets. They're under budget constraints, both on F-15EX and F-35. They've decreased the amount of aircraft purchases in those lots, respectively, down to 18. And then we're signaling, and this is where people like the AFA and the Air National Guard are getting incredibly vocal. They're signaling that they're going to curtail the overall buy to stopping at 98. The original contract was upwards of around 200. It finally settled after quite a bit of perturbation around 144. It then dropped down again to 104. And then the most recent budget documents, which came out last week, clipped that number lower to 98. And the Air Force is basically got some difficult bills to pay. I think if they stop at 98, and we know that F-35 is unable to meet the requirements, it is our concern that without a significant sustainment effort by legacy 4th generation platforms in about 19 Air National Guard bases, that we might uncover a vast majority of our Air National Guard force structure. So I know the Air National Guard director, General Lowe, likes to say 25 for 25. And right now we know that there's about 19 of the 25 fighter squadrons that do not have an identified replacement platform. I'll tell you down at the bottom, I kind of mentioned a global effort. Indonesia has decided to jump into the discussion with F-15EX. They signed an MOU in August, looking for 24 new jets. Poland has been in the news extensively, looking to purchase 32 new jets. And I mentioned Saudi Arabia is actively seeking out a replacement for 54 of their F-15Cs and Ds. We think those are incredibly target-rich opportunities to continue to build the line out. Next slide, Odie. Here's a real quick overview about capability, which I think if you're an aviation buff like me, you'll love it. It is a 2-seat airplane, but it can be flown single seat. So we knew the Air National Guard was going to be a customer. We knew that the F-15C and D, or the air superior units like F-16, Homeland Defense missions might be interested, and they don't have weapon system operators. So the airplane is mechanized to be flown all fully throughout the envelope, throughout the entire mission set by a single pilot in the front, which Odie will tell you, we can do that with A-10s. We can do that with F-16s, F-22s, F-35s. So we can do that with the F-15EX as well. But what's cool is having an option for a second crew member, I think allows you to do a couple of great things. You can do in-house pilot training, which I know that we're talking to our foreign partners about. That self-sufficiency is exciting for them. I did a lot of VIP flights for people that were great advocates for us on Capitol Hill, on people that were influencers in the backseat of a 2-seat plane. And then as you think to the future, long-range kill chain capabilities, which is the bottom bullet on the pilot enablement, maybe not a true weapon system operator like we've all grown up in the 80s and 90s thinking about dropping laser-guided munitions, but maybe somebody that's facilitating a 5,000-mile kill chain in the highly contested environment, shooting a hypersonic cruise missile. There might be a space for that, or somebody that's orchestrating manned and unmanned teaming of 12 unmanned drone type platforms from the backseat of an F-15EX. We think those are some things that not only the Boeing company is talking about, but obviously our customers in the Air Force and internationally. This plane represents what you would expect the plane to be built in 2023, 2024 to be built with. High-speed fiber, fantastic awareness to the pilot, all kinds of ability to multi-target track through the radar, through the EW system. Really easy to take in a lot of data and then take that workload off. Obviously, the digital flight controls helps there. And across the bottom are just some of the capabilities. If you were savvy on the F-15, you would know that the APG-82 is a modern ESA radar. It's being installed right now in all of our F-15Es in the United States Air Force. It is fantastic. And I'm not, it's a Raytheon product, so I'm not selling it from a Boeing perspective. Right now, the mean time between failures on that radar is 13,000 flight hours. So the radar will outlast the plane, just about. It is able to do air-to-air, air-to-ground, search and target tracking at ranges I can't disclose here, but the capability is without match. It is fantastic. The large area display, I'll show you a better picture of that here in a slide, is 30% bigger than the F-35. We can do that because the F-15 is a huge platform. It is a proven piece of technology that we imported over from the Super Hornet. Boeing makes both those platforms. So we took a piece of equipment that we really liked. We made it a little bit better. We made it F-15ized, and we brought it over, and it's a great piece of equipment. There's one of those in both the front and the back cockpit. And there's a low profile HUD, which is basically a new HUD that's been manufactured for some better clarity, some better targeting. All of these are completely night vision capable from the very beginning. So I think unlike Odie and I, where we had to like tape up the cockpits and kind of put filters over things, the cockpit's night vision capable from the word go. So you never have to do anything different to the airplane except invoke night vision mode, which apparently is fantastic. I'm trying to get a ride in the plane like any good fighter pilot would, and I'm very low on the list. So, and then great fiber, which allows us to port data quickly across the entire platform, which means we're going to be able to grow at the speed of relevance. We're going to be able to onboard new systems, new sensors, and things like that, as you see. One thing I'll point out real quick on this picture, there's some cheek mounts, Odie, you might see at the mid-canopy breakpoint. Those might be new if you're savvy on the F-15. I'll show them to you here on the model. It might be, they're not on, wait, they're on the model kind of right here, if you can see that. The Saudi Arabians and the Qataris invested heavily into our what we call the common missile warning system, which is an IR detection capability that the plane has as a self-defense mode. It sees missiles being shot at it, and it is able to port that into the self-defense mechanism of the airplane and react accordingly. The United States Air Force did not necessarily pay for that full system because they have something that's coming online, but it is wired for all of that when they decide to roll out the next thing that they're buying. Next slide. So if you see the F-15EX, those are capped right now, but on the Qatar jets, you'll see they have like kind of an array in the front, almost a vision system in both of those and in the tail. Real quick, this is a picture of the cockpit. As you would hope, 21st fighter, it's all glass. I can touch this with my naked finger. I can touch it with my glove. It is resistant to shaking and moving, so it's not like some of the other planes where you have to kind of touch and release. This is actually touch and drag, just like your smartphone. It is really, really a cool piece of technology. The display that you see there, it has a top menu that is kind of fixed across the top. That's digital. We don't really mess with that. And then what you see right there is kind of a 5-menu configuration or 5-window configuration. The display is completely customizable. So if you roll through a slide, you can change it with just touching and dragging and moving. If you roll the slide over, you can go to an 8-window, a 2-window, a 7-window, a 4-window configuration. And of course, we work with the customers if they want something slightly different. So I know that the slide's hanging up, but when we cycle through the slide, you'll see another window configuration. There's a 2-window configuration right there as well. If you were doing some air-to-ground mapping.
Sorry, which is directive on what you need from me there, buddy. I kind of missed that was my cue.
No, it's good. It's good. So The air crew, the pilots love this thing. I think we're one of the, I'm proud to say we're one of the companies, and I knew this when I was a test pilot in the Air Force. Boeing's one of those companies that wants to iterate with the warfighter. We're a little easier to work with since the Air Force owns a portion of the software as well. So we do cockpit working groups with our customers, and so we can customize this as they see fit within reason. Off to the right-hand side, old people like me, there's a what we call the electronic, the engine fuel hydraulic display. It's the green good, yellow not so good, red bad kind of button. It is, you can cycle through it very quickly to see your oil, your hydraulics, your fuel states, where the fuel is all in all the fuel tanks. It's great. It is so it's so much better than I would have sweat a lot less with this device than I did my 30 years of flying F-15s, because it's much more accurate and it's going to tell you when there's a problem. There's some safety features built into the airplane. The digital flight controls means it's unbelievably stable. That's a lesson that, the F-16 pilots were very fortunate to have, that they could max perform the airplane, and the airplane would be able to prevent the pilot from putting the airplane in a bad situation. You could still put it there, but it was a lot of work. The F-15 was a little more sensitive than our fly-by-wire counterparts in like F-22, F-35, and F-16. There were many F-15s lost through departures and spins, especially when we carried external stores. So we've kind of fixed all that with the digital flight controls. It is an incredibly stable platform, which allows us then to focus on the mission at hand. And then the little button over to the left, the DERF button, which is over on the canopy rail, the disorientation recovery function. I love that one, Odie. You can explain it to the team, but every year a fighter pilot has to take a check ride. So they make us close our eyes and we turn our heads over the shoulder. And then the evaluator puts the airplane in a weird position and you're supposed to go to the gauges and recover. All you do, Odie, is just hit the button and it goes whoop, straight and level flight. So I like to call that the Jesus take the wheel button, and it's off to the races. Go to the next slide.
Okay, I will say that the Block 60 Viper introduced the PARS button, which was the same
Great.
thing.
Perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, next slide.
Wait, I hit it. Let's try again here.
Yeah, it takes a while, I'm sure. There's buttons. There's also like rubber buttons around the outside of all of these things. If you're one of those people that likes the tactile feel of a button versus touching the glass. Cool. And then this is just a picture of the back seat. Yep, that's the picture of the back seat and what that looks like. A little bit different functionality. We've removed certain things that are interesting to the back seat but not compelling, and we've stacked them over into a more neat configuration. Like I said, they have the entire large area display. Again, it's about 19 inches wide by about 10 inches tall. And then they have some trigger grips, which is what the traditional weapon system operators have in order to do some more unique air-to-ground missions that they like to do. Next slide.
Is there a stick in the back seat?
There is a stick in the back seat. There are throttles in the back seat. They are not as sexy as the front seat when it comes to hands-on throttles and stick. They are more safety of flight. You take a bird in the front seat and the pilot's incapacitated, they can land from the back seat.
Okay.
And when I flew the 2-seat F-15E, I didn't let them touch it. But that's just, don't let that get out. So, what's interesting is a lot of, the Air National Guard knows this better than a lot of other units. For years, they've been so flexible in adapting to what the nation requires. Throughout the global war on terror, we saw kind of the Air National Guard's units using their INGRIA money to evolve, to continue to stay relevant. So being able to take an airplane and flex it from what they were traditionally in their desired operational capability statement, and being able to flex to something unique, whether it was scud hunting in the Western Desert of Iraq. That was done by prominently an Air National Guard unit that created that mission and figured it out, pioneered some of the air-to-ground targeting pods usage that was going on, to doing high-value asset tracking, to doing some unique communication things. So the Guard, I believe, and the Guard will tell you this, that they want this plane to get their hands on it because they know that all of these mission sets are going to be things that they're going to really be able to iterate with, given They have truly a really experienced workforce, not only from the aviator side, but the mechanic side. And then they have some unique funding authorities within GRIA money that they're going to be able to take this platform. And it's really almost an open mission system. We're working to that direction. We're not there yet. But when we get there, they're going to be able to do some really cool things. And you're going to see what might have been a more narrowly focused Air National Guard unit, given their capability. They're going to be able to do whatever keeps them relevant and whatever the combatant commanders need from them to do, whatever the nation needs. And they're going to be able to work this kind of wheel on here on capabilities. Let's go to the next slide. I spent a lot of time talking to the Air National Guard about how excited they are if they get this platform and what they think they'll be able to do as they move through all kinds of varying mission sets. And that's just that's a picture. When you look at the kind of the loadout, Odie's going to make some snarky comment about, as an F-16 pilot, this is the way I always saw my F-15s under the pipper when I was gunning them. So I just throw this in there so you can tell everybody how cool you are. You can drop down the slide and stop sharing, Odie. And I see some questions coming in the chat box. One's from Jack. The ceiling limit on the F-15 is the same ceiling limit pretty much for almost all of our fighters, which is 50,000 feet. The F-22 has a 60,000 foot ceiling. I'm confident. Odie's probably been there. I've been above 50,000 feet in the F-15. I didn't tell anybody. So this is recorded. Oh, it is recorded. Dang it. It doesn't matter. They can't do anything to me.
Tell Brian to edit it out. You're good, Blender.
They can't do anything. We say that the train, there's a reason for 50,000 feet. The plane, pressurization, some air crew safety, things of that nature, is capped at 50,000 feet. It can go higher. We saw during the Chinese balloon shoot down over South Carolina, a lot of people go higher.
Out of necessity.
Yeah. So in combat, I was well above 50,000 feet trying to go chase some guys down over Iraq. What questions do you have for me, Odie, or for the group?
Well, I'll start with just a couple things while they come up with questions. But Tamara, if we want to enable that, I didn't tell everybody they needed to put it in chat, so we'll let people go live voice. But there's 3 notes that I took in here, just on acronyms for the crowd, because we have some folks that aren't necessarily fighter pilot savvy. ESA, AESA, is a new type of radar active electronically scanned array. Got to say that right. I was blessed to get to work with the company that was building one of the first of those for the F-16. So instead of a mechanical turning back and forth, it's all done electronically now, which gives unbelievable more power, capability, flexibility within the radar system. But when you hear that term, and when he showed us that picture of the radar, you'll notice it didn't have what you would look at as a radar dish that we're used to looking at. So it's some of the cool new technology that's out there. When he was talking about the Air National Guard bases, the term uncover, that basically is the political talk for there's no replacement fighter aircraft to go to that base. Right now, Selfridge is, from a fighter perspective, is one of those uncovered bases, which means there's not a replacement for the A-10s right now in the program in the future. And then the last one that you mentioned, which is a really cool thing, is INGRIA, which is the National Guard and Reserve Equipment Appropriation, which is an additional funding that goes to the Guard that is mainly, from the aircraft perspective, handled through the AATC organization down in Arizona, where they come up with some pretty ingenious ways to modify airplanes, give new capabilities, using this line of funding that some years is nothing and some years is a lot. So it's always very interesting to see politically how that plays out. But it looks like we've got some more questions in the chat. Blender, if you would just want to go start hitting them, I will shut up.
No, I think we answered the ceiling in the chat. There was a question how fast. It's a Mach 2.5 jet, which is kind of typical for the F-15, fastest one on the market right now. Range with and without externals. I'll tell you, I think Odie can probably also help you out there. That's a tricky question in the sense that it depends on your configuration. So if I'm fully loaded, I'm going to combat. We call kind of a combat radius which is a fully loaded airplane. I fly at a relatively fuel efficient rate, but then I increase my fuel burn because I'm doing kind of a combat air patrol, and then I return. I'll tell you that we talk about a combat radius of about 800 miles. Back me up if I'm wrong. It's about 800 miles, and that gets us, what's our on station time?
Like 30 minutes.
30 minutes. So we talk about going 800 miles, which is about 2 hours of flight time, staying on station for 30 minutes and turning around and flying 2 hours back. It's kind of a combat radius, which I think everybody would say is pretty exceptional. It does have, okay, so it's kind of a tricky question. I think we could fly, we did some numbers the other day. We think we can fly about almost 4 hours without air refueling. So really no problem going long range, maybe 4.5 hours, I think is what Nick, we did some math. And that assumed kind of a ferry configuration, so externals as well. So the Air Force, just, we do have a thing called conformal fuel tanks that you'll see on typical big F-15s. The first 4 lots of the F-15EX do not come with the conformal fuel tank. The Air Force did not buy them. So the Air Force was looking to do maybe some innovation and stuff like that. And that's turned out to be that's not going to manifest the way they wanted it to. The conformal fuel tanks are in lot 5 and lot 6. So you'll see them roll out with conformal fuel tanks as well. We do carry 3, you can carry 3 external wing tanks as well if you wanted to, but then you lose some air to ground capability if you do that. Upgraded IFF, yes, 100%. It's got the newest, all of it. MIDS jitter, mode 5, mode S. It's got the whole enchilada.
Okay, and that's how fighters can friendly identify with themselves in ground stations and everything else equipped in the airplane. But
yes.
we have a wonderful hand up from our student ambassador from the University of Michigan ROTC, Alex.
National champions.
Oh yeah, national champions. I guess so. Sorry, joined late. If you've already answered this, does the EX, does the communication suite like have the ability to share like targeting info or any other information from the sensor suite with other aircraft?
Yes. So
similar to like how the joint. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, that's a technology that's been resident for quite a while through our Joint Tactical Information Distribution System, JTIDS. We send that over a waveform called Link 16. We can share fighter to fighter stuff. We can share fighter to command and control platforms, fighter to air to ground platforms. I think the future is very bright in that space. We have on the F-15EX a new waveform with resident in the terminals. And I mentioned, Alex, you might have joined after it. The power output in the real estate on the platform allows for a lot of really evil engineers that are creating all kinds of new antennas and transmission devices, because we believe in the modern conflict that communication is going to be incredibly difficult and at the same time incredibly critical. So how do we have secure and trusted communications? And that's one way through the data link system. Good question.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Blender, when you said evil engineers, why did Courtney smile?
She's one of
I know, I caught that. I just wanted to let you know we're watching Courtney. So we caught that.
She grew up in places that don't have windows here on the site, developing some crazy software opportunities that our warfighters really dig.
Fantastic. What other questions do we have from the group here tonight?
So you remember mine from the beginning, right? Before Odie, before he came, how did he get his call sign?
Oh, that's right. They want to know where Blender came from.
Oh, look at him.
Oh, no. I had to write about mine in the book, dude. You get to talk a little bit. Come on.
Give us the PG version.
Yeah, okay, the PG version. I'm a new guy in the fighter squadron. And so most new guys in fighter squadrons, are assigned tasks to do. I was married. So I was, while I was a new guy in the fighter squadron, I was a little bit older by the time I got to my first fighter squadron. So we got invited over to a party that the squadron was throwing. There were 4 single guys that all shared a townhouse, and they were very musically gifted. So they had a band, and they invited everybody to this townhouse for this party, and they were playing music and having a great time. However, they were a bunch of single guys, so they were slobs, and they had nothing to eat and really nothing to drink except like scotch. And so all of our wives and girlfriends said, the music's really cool, but you don't know how to host a party, so we're all going to leave. And I communicated this to the older members of the squadron, and in a panic, they said, well, what do we need? And I had trained in my previous life, I was going to be a bartender in Honolulu. And so I said, well, give me a blender and get some ice and some fruit and some rum and stuff. And they did. And so I began preparing refreshments for the entire squadron. And we turned the party around 180 out for the next 12 hours, it seemed like. And so if you want to have a good party, you better have a blender on hand. Yeah. What else? What other questions? I have an ask for the Michigan AFA team before we step off. Here's my ask. I believe, and I told this to Senator Schmidt, who is the junior senator from the state of Missouri, who also has a fighter squadron. It's an Air Force Reserve component fighter squadron at Whiteman Air Force Base. They fly A-10s. That is about to be one of the 19 or so uncovered fighter squadrons that I mentioned. Although they're not an Air National Guard squadron, they're a reserve squadron. I believe it is good for America to have 2 fighter lines manufacturing fighter aircraft. I believe that provides resiliency and diversification in the defense industrial base on the off chance America needs more airplanes. If we shut down one of those fighter lines, then we as Americans are beholden to a singular supply chain, a singular manufacturer. That limits competition, which then may manifest in stale technology or prices being a challenge. I think keeping 2 fighter lines open is critical. And so Lockheed Martin is going to produce F-35s for a long time. They have, it is cool, it is sexy, it is a high-end replacement for the F-16, of course, but they cannot produce enough fighter jets to meet what I believe are international and our own national demands. So as a Boeing business development guy, your advocacy to continue to invest in the F-15EX, whether that's for the United States of America, which as an American, I definitely want to build for America first, or for our international partners, keeps the line hot at least a little while longer. And that gives America options. So if the United States Air Force and the Air National Guard decide we can't afford them this year, but I have international partners that are investing and delivering, when the United States comes back around in a year or 2 and says, hey, I've got money now, I want to buy more, or the world environment's changed and I need more, then at least the line is live and producing, manufacturing F-15EXs for our country. So I would say your advocacy and support for, first of all, are we making enough airplanes as a nation to meet our national security interests? That's something you can continue to ask and question our lawmakers. Is it right to have multiple lines producing for us to give us the best technologically advanced product and keep prices right? I think that's a great question to ask. And then finally, supporting international sales helps America, because I'll be honest with you, if the United States Air Force stops the sale at 98 F-15EXs and they want to modernize, then they're going to take whatever the modernization bill is, divide by 98, and that's the price. If we're selling to international partners and we want to modernize our 98, the reality is I'm able to sell some of that across our international portfolio. So now I take that price, and instead of dividing by 98, I divide by 298. And so you can see where the United States gets increased capability for a fraction of price. This is why F-16 was so successful forever. This is why F-35 is incredibly successful, and it's actually somewhat affordable because they're able to share costs across a very, very large international portfolio.
Okay. Hey, I'll actually talk to that real quick if you don't mind, because of course, Representative John James has been one who's been championing for the F-15EX specifically through the NDAA. John James is a good friend of the Michigan AFA, and we certainly have his ear, and we talk this subject quite a bit. When you talked about capacity, this is just for everybody on the Zoom here. With the F-35 is pretty much right now maxed out in production. And when you look at the demand from overseas, there's really not increased production a whole lot more. Even if we wanted to, it would be a pretty large investment that would take a while to pay off. And once again, it would be just on the margins in terms of increasing capacity to produce F-35. So the point he's bringing up, as we look at the fighter force structure, he talked earlier on about the uncovering of bases, the fact that we are decreasing the number of planes. And the reality is the United States Air Force didn't buy fighters for an extended period of time. So we are looking at what's called the bathtub. And that bathtub is a shortfall of platforms. So it is a recapitalization. I'd almost call it a crisis that we're looking at right now. So some very valid points that he's bringing up in terms of resiliency of the supply chain, in terms of overall capacity, as well as unique capabilities, I think, that brings to this whole thing. This is not me making an advertisement for Boeing. It is simply the facts of life as we look at things out there in front of us. So yes, we will continue to champion. We do have the ear of the congressional delegation here. That's one of the wonderful things between Senator Peters on SASC, and a number of folks on the House Armed Services Committee, including Jack Bergman from the Upper Peninsula, Lisa McLean. John James is not on HASC, but he's been a big champion of the F-15EX, trying to write some of that into the budgeting. And then the one I will throw back to you as a question would be, I don't think we ever talked about current plan basing for the F-15EX. If you want to touch on what the current plan is.
Yeah, I think, Odie, the only thing I can really talk to, because it's really an Air Force decision, where they put them down. We are just finishing up. We flew it yesterday. If you check my LinkedIn post, we flew the second Portland Air National Guard F-15EX. So they go out and they fly without all their makeup on, and then once they pass the checks with us, we hand them to the government. They pass their checks with them, and then we paint them up, make them look pretty, and then we deliver them. They're first 14, so those two and the whole next lot of 12 are set to go to the Portland Air National Guard base out on the West Coast. And then there are 36 over 2 lots that are being manufactured, that the Air Force will decide where to put those down. They have identified New Orleans and Fresno in California. So New Orleans, Louisiana, and Fresno as 2 F-15C Air National Guard bases that are set to get replaced. But when you build them, I build them for the Air Force, and the Air Force puts them wherever they want. I don't think Portland's going to get their jets right away. They're having some environmental impact bureaucracy they're working through with the state and the national level. So they're probably going to go down to Florida and sit for a couple of months, which is actually a good thing, because the other 6 F-15EXs we've made are down there. So they're already doing training down there right now with their maintenance and their pilots. So putting them all together for a little bit, because they'll only have 2 initially. So putting them with the other 6 and doing a bunch of training and workups might be advantageous. But
okay. And was Barnes on that list or not? I thought they were at one point, just under consideration. Once again, not to put you in the spot of speaking for the Air Force, but was there talk of Barnes?
There was a long time ago, and then they were talking about F-35s for Barnes, and now I think there's been a lot of conversation about how that F-35 build out and timing is going for Barnes.
Okay. And once again, for everybody, we used to refer to it as the 4 corners air defense units, which has changed dramatically since 9/11, that whole strategy. But it used to be that we put air defense fighters in each corner of the country, and hence why I brought in the discussion about Barnes. Any other questions from the group here to Blender?
Hey, Odie, there's 2 quick questions in the chat. I'll address them real quick because I want to be sensitive to raise time. There's a comment there about mil-spec manufacturing, and there were suppliers 500 miles apart. There's 450 suppliers, roughly, plus or minus, that manufacture the F-15EX. Our supply chain as a nation is pretty fragile. And I'll tell you that there are a lot of people that aren't interested in building 100 things. They're interested in building 10,000 things. And so maintaining the right mil spec supply chain is a battle that our supply chain, well, this is not just a Boeing problem. This is all over the world, a challenge every day. I can tell you that we've been trying to deliver parts to Qatar, and since the Houthis have rendered, the Suez Canal area and the Red Sea as unsafe for passage, it's led to supply chain challenges. The Key Bridge falling down in Baltimore Harbor 2 days ago. You should read about the supply chain challenges. They're already talking about laying off port workers and things of that nature. So our supply chain as a nation is fragile. We should really have a national level conversation about that, not just from the defense industrial base, but everything else. And then there was a leadership change going on at Boeing. Yes, I think everybody saw that Dave Calhoun announced he's going to step down at the end of the year. Dave Calhoun is the CEO for Boeing. Boeing is an interesting company. We're actually made up of 3 different companies. For the most part, there's Boeing Commercial, which really represents about 70% of the stock price for the most part. So 787, 737, 777s, things that mostly doing their work out of Seattle, and then some other places where they manufacture the large commercial platforms. There's Boeing Global Services, which does quite a bit of our sustainment for our customers around the world. They do leadership, they do training systems and sustainment. They do some unique things as well. And then there's Boeing Defense, which is who we work for, which, we consider ourselves all Boeing. But my boss is eventually Ted Colbert, president of Boeing Defense, and then he works for Dave Calhoun. And we do weapons and obviously aircraft manufacturing and some other bespoke stuff. So Dave Calhoun is committed to obviously seeing through the challenges that are facing him at the corporate level on safety, manufacturing discipline, things of that nature. They're working incredibly hard. We are very informed on all that. But our president and our leadership chain has focused on that for a long, long time as well. We have to. Our customers are incredibly demanding, and they should be. And we don't see how that's going to affect the production of the F-15EX. We don't see that impacting us at all.
Okay. Hey, one of the things I think we'd mentioned before, we're still interested in pursuing, another Boeing product. And I think it probably comes out of your defense, even though most of it's commercial, would be the KC-46, which has been announced to come into Selfridge.
Correct.
So if you have an introduction for us from somebody that would like to come in and do a similar presentation,
100%.
what we know is coming our way in the near future to replace our KC-135s, that would be awesome also.
Easy. Yeah, that is a Boeing defense platform. So we buy an airplane from Boeing Commercial, and then we turn it into the KC-46.
Oh, I can
Just
just
like
hear
we do
you
for the
arguing about
E7.
the prices.
No, just like we do for the E7. It's internal to the company, right? I mean, that's how
Okay.
they move it. They move it around in the company.
And that would be another one you just gave me. I had not thought about the E7, but that would be a good one, which is the wedge-tailed version of the 737 that's going to be the replacement for the AWACS for going forward. So that might be another one for the future for us. So
Great. I'll set you up with the KC-46 team.
fantastic. I appreciate it a lot. Any last questions from anybody?
Courtney, anything we've missing?
I don't think so.
Courtney, you haven't been talking too much back there.
No, he's doing a great job. I'm just making sure he doesn't say anything he's not supposed to.
Ah, okay. I didn't notice the little
I'm just
thing
teasing.
to hit him in the back if.
What kind
no,
of engineers are we?
I am a mechanical engineer by background and systems engineering, so kind of integration.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, Blender, Courtney, thank you for taking the time and joining us, sharing, your insights, your expertise, so that, that we can get a little bit deeper understanding. People talk about the F-15EX, but now you've given us a deeper insight into what that means. And as like I said, when I was sending out my social media stuff, this isn't your grandmother's F-15, your grandfather's from, 50 years ago. It's hard to imagine that. But yes. So fantastic. We wish you all the greatest luck. Please let us know how we can be your wingman in this whole product, in this whole process. And once again, thank you so much for the time. And on behalf of the Michigan Air National Guard, I normally give our speakers, a big damn bullet out of an A-10. So if you want a big burp, let me know and we'll figure out how to get it mailed to you over there. You can put a real bullet in your office there next to that little F-15.
Thanks, Odie, and thanks everybody for letting us spend an hour with you, and go blue.
All right. Love it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Look forward to our next one. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Blender, God bless you all. Take care.